Hello ladies and gentlemen, here we go, one of my favourite dishes of all, buto no kakani. Let's get straight into this. It is a long dish, and let me prepare you for this. Okay, let's just start off with some pork belly slices. So we're going for about 400 grams here. What we're going to do first of all is we're going to tenderize these bad boys. Do it however you want, but what I'm going to use is a big old rolling pin. Go on, bash those bad boys out. Once you tenderize these, make sure you just flip them, tenderize both sides, and then what you're going to do is you're going to push it together to reform the actual structure of the pork belly again. This will make sure it's nice and tender and it's still nice and chunky and delicious. Once you've actually pushed it together, what you're going to do is you're going to cut it into about inch sizes. I'm really bad at measuring, so I just went ahead and cut it anyway. But this first cut will be a general size of what you want to aim for. There's no harm in actually doing more than the amount of meat I've done. The more meat, just make sure you up the amount of the rest of the ingredients so you have more soup for it to cook in. And what you're going to do is first of all you're going to fry all of these bad boys off. Make sure when you're frying them that you get a nice glaze on them. You want to make sure it's cooked like... You don't have to worry about it being cooked thoroughly because either way it's going to boil for a very long time, but you want to make sure you get a nice sealed coat on it. This should take about 5 to 10 minutes to actually do, depending on how high you have the heat. I like it to get to a nice brown colour, as you'll see here. I probably did use too much oil in this as well, so yeah, that's my bad. And yeah, okay, here we go. So with me, I didn't have any kitchen cloths, I used toilet paper. Stupid idea, because if you know anything about toilet paper, it sticks like a good one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pat it down with the toilet roll anyway, and then that just to take off the remainder of the grease. Once you've done that, you're going to cut your ginger. I used about a thumb of ginger, cut them like at a decent thickness, and you're going to separate this. I separated this into about halves, so you're going to use half now and half later. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut your spring onions next, and the amount of spring onions is down to you. If you notice, I set aside two or three of those thick bits, and that's for later, but the rest of it we're just going to cut down. Try and just use mostly the greens. Add your pork belly to a saucepan, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add the ginger next. Remember, we're only using half of this ginger in there. Once you've added the ginger, you want to add those spring onions that you cut up to save those 2 or 3 big bits that we're going to cut up for later. You're going to use about enough water just to cover it, just to go over both the meat and a bit of the spring onions to make sure it all cooks evenly. And then you're going to bring that to boil. Once that's been brought to boil, you can lower the heat because you're going to be leaving this for 2 to 3 hours. You may need to come back and occasionally add some more water into this, but just keep it uncovered because you want to remove as much of that meaty smell as possible. And here's a good time, while this is actually simmering, what you're going to do is pre-boil some hard-boiled eggs because you will need those for later. I've not included the video of that, how to cook those, because I assume you know how to cook those. Okay, so what you're going to do next is that with those 2 or 3 thick bits of the spring onions, you're going to cut them. Now the idea is just to cut them as fine as possible because this is going to actually be used as a topper at the very end. I'm not great at cutting these things. It's much easier if you've got bigger spring onions. Unfortunately, this is what we've got to use. Once you've actually cut these into thin bits, just leave them in water, like cold water, just to take some of the bitterness out of them. So as you'll notice, this is what it should look like by the end of the 2 or 3 hours. It's very soft, very succulent. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pour this into a sieve. You can pour it straight away depending how you want to do it, but I want to keep this stock for later because this can actually be used in ramen noodles or something, and it's absolutely fantastic. We did this and it was so delicious. So yeah, you'll notice I'll pour everything in here, just leaving that last bit of stock over. I like to use as much as possible, no waste. It's always the best way to live. And then just set that aside somewhere and you should be fine. We're going to cut some chilies up next, and this is totally optional. It depends if you like it spicy, add more. If you don't, then don't. It doesn't add too much spice, just a nice kick to it. Then we're going to put these all back in the pot again because guess what? We're cooking it for longer. But this time we're going to add the ingredients. We're going to add 2.5 cups of dashi. We're going to add 4 tablespoons of sake, 3 tablespoons of mirin, 4 tablespoons of soy sauce with those chilies, the rest of your ginger, and 4 tablespoons of sugar. Now I know this is a lot to take in, it's a lot of ingredients I've just listed, so I'm just going to include them on the screen so you can see them. I just might want to remind you that I actually got this recipe from Just One Cookbook website. I've included a link below. They describe it very easily. This is just showing you cooking process and showing it's easy to make. Okay, so once you've added all that, what you're going to do is you're going to bring that up to boil and you're going to make an otoshi buta, which is this. It's a tinfoil hat. So I'm going to leave that on there for about half an hour, leaving it to simmer. once you've left that for about half an hour, you're going to add your eggs in. Now, you want to leave these for an extra half an hour, and that will give it that lovely colour that you saw at the very beginning. So give them a stir, make sure they get enough juice on them, and then chuck the lid straight back on, and you're going to leave this for just half an hour longer, and trust me, you'll be ready to eat this. Now look at this beauty, absolutely stunning. You'll notice it's reduced right down, that flavour's captured right in that pork, and it is one of the most tasty things I've ever eaten in my life. I still remember the first time I ever tried it, and I do apologise, I did want an ending video of me eating this. I did have it, but unfortunately my other half does not know how to press the record button at the right time. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll catch you again soon, people. Take it easy, bye.